This is Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, with Whitney and Jenkins. Hello and welcome to Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, where I bring on guests and we talk about the inner authentic voice and the challenges and the rewards that come from following it. This week I have with me Bjorn Lestrud. Bjorn's journey began in the fast-paced world of high-performing sales, where outward success masked a profound sense of unfulfillment. Battling chronic prehypertension, arthritis, and lingering pain from a past injury, he felt increasingly disconnected from his true self. This internal struggle ignited a quest for authenticity and healing. A pivotal moment came in 2010 when Bjorn explored the teachings of Bob Proctor, leading to an emotional release that marked the beginning of his awakening. This experience inspired him to seek deeper fulfillment and genuine expression. His journey took a significant turn in 2021 during the Light Portal in Tulum, where he began a series of encounters with ancient wisdom and discovered the power of sound through transformative experiences with plant medicine and biofield tuning. Through his explorations, including work with shamans from multiple different tribes, Bjorn deepened his understanding of healing and authenticity. These encounters highlighted the importance of connection in the healing process, ultimately guiding him to create Blue Dragon Healing. His flagship program, Primal Path, offers individuals a structured journey through pain, awakening, transformation, and heritage. I've got to say that this is probably one of the most intriguing podcast episodes that I've had the pleasure of hosting, because the way that Bjorn takes us through the discovery of himself through his journey is really profound. And he even offers us a part of his learning in his expression with sound healing at the end of the episode. So definitely look forward to that. And here is Bjorn Lestrud and his wisdom. Enjoy. So whenever you're ready, just let me know and we can take a breath and begin.
I can tell it's going to be good. I'm already clear in energy.
Oh,
I'm ready whenever you are.
okay, perfect. So the topic of my podcast is about following your inner authentic voice. And so one of the first things that I like to ask my guests, and especially those who help others connect with that authenticity, there was a lot of things that you probably had to go through in order to be able to get to the point where you can be that guide for others. And so one of the first things that I like to ask is, when is the first time that you recognized that you had this inner guidance system of your own and you were able to follow it?
Hmm. Well, the answer to that would depend on what you mean by follow it. I had experienced a spiritual awakening like years before I had follow-up experiences where I began to understand more about the sense of purpose behind it.
Mhm.
So you're more interested in the sense of purpose, I take it? Is that?
Well, I mean, we can also go back to like you as a child, and did you feel this voice or authenticity or inner thing within you? What is the earliest that you can remember it appearing to you in your life?
In adulthood, really.
Okay.
There are moments going back to school that I remember where I was in like a waking dream state, like a theta state, and I was having visions of things, but these were all very fragmented experiences. When I was an adult, though, and after I had the experience of spiritual awakening, I went on a trip and I started traveling around the world, and I had been suffering from some health problems for a little while. Like I had gained a lot of weight. I was up at some point, I think I was up to about 270 pounds, and I had this arthritis that I call it arthritis. seemed like it was. It had developed in both of my knees. So if I was like sitting down for any period of time for more than a couple of minutes, I'd have to straighten my legs out just to relieve the sense of stiffness that would just start setting in to the physical extremities. And then I had high blood pressure and I had a lot of anxiety, you could say. Though I didn't really recognize it as anxiety at the time. I didn't want to admit that to myself at the time. Reflecting back, I most certainly did. And so I went on this trip around the world, and eventually I landed in a place in Mexico called Tulum. When I was there, I had a friend that I'd known for a long time that was also there, and he got into an accident, and he hurt his foot, and his toe was like black and blue, and the toenail was basically black, like it was going to fall off. And I had just seen him a couple of days prior, but I saw him, and he said, "Look at my foot," and I look, and it's totally normal. Like there's no discoloration, the toenail is all intact. It was like nothing had ever happened. So I decided, well, first I was curious, like, how did this happen? And he told me he went to like an energy healing ceremony called the Light Portal, and in that process, his toe came out like that. And that was a bit far-fetched for me to believe at the time, but I was open enough to think, well, hey, this sounds interesting, and they were doing it once a week, so I went to the next one. This is when things began.
Yeah.
I had a release during that ceremony. Well, I mean, the ceremony was like a combination of different healing modalities. There was 15 to 20 of us lined up all around the room in a circle, and they had us doing what they called biodynamic breath work, where you would be doing like almost like qigong slash yoga type movements in combination with open mouth breathing. And for anyone who's experienced open mouth breathing, like in an intentional way, just doing that by itself is a lot, because it does a lot, triggering what's going on in your nervous system, your sympathetic nervous system, where all the trauma is. And so combining all this stuff and then having everyone lay down and continue to open mouth breathe, and then there were 4 or 5 facilitators of the ceremony that were going around, and someone was drumming, someone was chanting, other people were doing physical body work on us, like digging into our fascia and stuff to like try and remove blockages. It was a wild environment, like some people were crying, there were some people who were screaming. And anyways, this very tiny woman that's like from this ancient Muslim lineage, because they were all from different traditions. She
Mm.
came in and started working on me and digging into my muscle tissue and stuff, and it hurt extremely a lot. And then when she left, I started to laugh, but it was like a release. It was a laughter that was like an uncontrollable sense of laughter. I couldn't stop it from just bubbling through. So it wasn't a miraculous healing, but it was a sense like, take another step forward here. So I
Mm.
did. And I set up a private session with 2 of the facilitators from the Light Portal. They came to my apartment, and it was Ina, the woman who had worked on me, and her partner Jose. She worked on me for like an hour and a half. They put a mattress on the floor, had me lay on the mattress, and she just dug into my body for like an hour and a half. Excruciatingly painful. And after the hour and a half or so was up, then the 3 of us sat in a little circle and talked about what she perceived as what she'd seen. So she would say things to the effect like, I saw like this fear and anger on your father's side, and this sadness and fear on your mother's side. And, this is the first time I'd even been introduced to the idea that masculine, feminine energies on different sides of the body and any of that stuff. And and I saw these spirit guides. This for my first time really being introduced to that aspect as well. Like, oh, I saw this jaguar and this Native American shaman. I'm like, what did I get myself into here? So then the next part of the last remaining part of the private session was sort of meet your guides, which was they
Mm-hmm.
served me a plant medicine called hape. For those who don't know, hape it's some people refer to it as shamanic snuff. It's a heavy tobacco based, made with sacred tobacco by the leaders of indigenous tribes in the Amazon. And they have a very manual, long process they go through, and they put these certain prayers over it. Sometimes they sing songs to the hape, and then they have other things they add in depending on the hape, like the bark from a sunu tree. It could be mint, depends on the hape, right? But it usually has a psychoactive component to it. That's part of the point. They take you take it through the nose, and in so doing, it rather puts you into an altered state to where your mind is less in control of the situation. So, I mean, I had gone through all that already. I'm like, well, okay, I mean, might as well try the hape too. So they served me the hape, and as soon as they served it to me, again, both nostrils. So Jose was on one end. I have I think I have a tape here. I can. Basically, it's this curved structure. So one person's blowing in one end, and the other is putting the other end in their nostril. So he served me this hape, and it burned a lot when it went in. And then next thing I know, he gets up and he walks around behind me and he starts shaking maracas in my ears. Now, normally when I would be in a situation like that, the first thing I would want to do would be to start processing it. How I used to be. The first thing I would try to do would process things logically with my mind. What is happening right now? And then try to like judge it or understand it. But there was so much noise because he was shaking the maracas in my ears, I couldn't think.
Yeah.
And then he starts chanting, like channeled chanting, not like a traditional song type of a chant, not like a kirtan or something. So he's chanting and shaking his maracas in my ears, and the next thing I know, I start chanting. I cannot stop chanting.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this feeling like there's some super strong, powerful force that is going to is pushing its way through me, and it's determined to push itself all the way through and be heard. And in so doing, it was connecting with pushing out a lot of trauma all at once. So it was a very difficult, very heavy feeling in my body, letting this sound out. And I ultimately purged, vomited a ton right
Mm.
afterward. And I was laying on the floor for hours, feeling just like too sick to even get up and lay on the couch that was next to me because the floor seemed more safe and secure because of it was, a hard surface and all that. But the next morning when I woke up, all the pain and stiffness from my knees was gone. And that had been bothering me for years. Poof, gone.
Mm.
And so I knew there that I had to go further and do more explorations, whether with these particular shamans or with some others. I knew like I gotta go further with this and see where what's
Yeah.
the expression? See where the something goes, see where the trail goes. I don't know.
Yeah, could I pause here for a minute? And
Uh-huh.
I kind of want to go back to earlier in the way that you said that you used to process things, because what was your connection with spirituality before this happened, and what prompted you to go traveling?
Ah, yes, I have an answer for that too. So when I was still working in corporate America, my occupation was sales. I was doing really well in my job in terms of my performance, but it was really taking its toll on me. And for some reason, I started studying personal development. It wasn't for the first time, but I was getting back into it and learning some new things. And particularly, I started studying Bob Proctor. And he had this thing that he used a lot when he would teach called the stick person concept, where you take a model of the human mind and body and you have an illustration that's a very simplistic way of having a model to think about it in your mind. So the top, like the mind, would be represented as a large circle with a line down the middle of it, and the top half of the circle being the conscious mind, the bottom half being the subconscious mind. But I was getting to the section in his program about paradigms and how a lot of the patterns and the pains and the beliefs that we hold were not even were put in us before we were even able to consciously reject them
Mm.
for ourselves. And I saw this image in the program that showed the stick person concept, but the top of the head of the stick person was open because it was an infant essentially that didn't have the protection of their conscious mind. And it showed all the people around them and all the thought forms that those people were thinking all flowing right into the top of that unprotected head and going right into that stick person infant. And why
Mm.
it's significant is that when I was sitting at work one day, I was inspired to do a little exercise that I just sort of created it was near the end of the workday, and I decided to write down like what was my greatest, most painful memory. And so I thought about that. Actually, I didn't need to think about that very much. I had a memory that I put in for it, and then I asked, "What am I most grateful for in my life right now?" And so I answered that one, and then I asked the third question, which was, "Would I have the thing that I'm most grateful for if I had not experienced the thing that was most painful?" And then I realized, no, I wouldn't actually have that thing. And then I saw in my mind's eye that stick person, the one with missing the opening in the top of the head for the baby. I saw that stick person flip upside down, and all these thought forms start pouring out of the head. And this is at the exact moment that everyone starts leaving the building for the day. And so right as I'm seeing that image, I start standing up to walk out of the building, and then tears just start gushing down my face. It was like not the sense of crying I'd ever had before, because it was only pleasurable. It was not like a sense like I felt bad about something. It was the release of a lifetime.
Mhm.
So I start walking and leave the building, and I just kept getting more and more and more swept up in this sense of euphoria, and it gets greater and greater and greater and greater. I walked about 20 blocks the wrong way without even realizing it. I was just feeling so incredible. And I connected while I was walking that sense of gratitude that I had all of a sudden discovered toward my pain was also connected to a sense of forgiveness to some misunderstandings I had had with my father when I was younger. And so there was this forgiveness coming through, this gratitude coming through, and it just felt so good. So what happened was the next day I came into work and immediately my body started sending me signals. Like I got just getting the worst stomach pain, just being in the building. I realized that
Mm.
that experience I had kind of opened up my energetic body more to where I was feeling more of what I was experiencing. And I did not want to feel that way, that I did when I was in that building. So I knew like I have to do something different. I want to travel. And so I got into crypto at just the right time. And it worked out super well. And so I started traveling. And I lived in like 15 countries over about 5 years.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, so I've learned that through my own experience of healing and energy work and even being a musician, like frequencies and sounds, that healing isn't about fixing yourself, it's about creating a balance. And that became clear to me like when really reflecting on how deeply interweaved and connected your mind and your body and your emotions and your spirit and your energy really are. And so it inspired me to focus on building mental wealth, habits that nurture resilience and balance over time. And mental wealth is about 5 key pillars: sleep, diet, exercise, stress management, and tools like exogenous compounds. And for me, Magic Mind has been one of those tools. Their focus shots help me start the day with clarity and calm energy, while their sleep shots make it easier to unwind and rest deeply at night. And I'm really feel good about using these products because they are made from all natural ingredients. And Magic Mind isn't a magical fix, but it's backed by a lot of research and science about how these compounds work together to create optimal performance and balance. And it's been an incredible support in my mental wealth journey. And this January, they're offering a 24-hour pack that bundles focus and sleep shots at 45% off. And the link is in the show notes in the description. So if you're ready to align your mind, body, and spirit this year, this is the perfect place to start. And then you landed in Tulum, and then
Mm,
you had that incredible experience that you just described earlier.
mm.
And so where did you go from there of having that experience and the release and the
Yeah.
elimination of the pain, and like how did you move forward from there?
So are we fast forwarding back to Tulum beyond the initial release with the Hape and all of that, or
Unless you have more that you would like to share in between.
I mean, there's infinite amounts of things that we could practically that we could talk about, but I think that what you might find more interesting and more on point would be the stuff that happened
Sure.
in Tulum. Okay, so I had done this private session with Ina and Jose and had this experience, of course, and I wanted to experience more things and see what this shamanic path is all about. So I decided I was going to try a medicine called Buffa alvarius, which I had never heard of before I came there. But I had seen a Simpsons episode a long time ago where they were going around licking toads and getting high, and that was actually about Bufo, and because the substance is connected to the excretion from certain toads. Anyway, so you smoke it. You, that's how you take it. So I did a private session with the other two facilitators from the Light Portal. Actually facilitated this private session where they basically had me sitting up. They served me the bufo and just told me to inhale, 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 inhale until it was gone, and then they had throw my arms up straight in the air, and then just gently fall back onto the mattress that they had put on the floor. And I'd heard different. I didn't know what to expect because I'd heard such a wide variety of things from what people have said. Some people had the best experiences on Bufo, other people, and I had a Dark Night of the Soul on it, and I had no idea what was coming, but I was gonna do it. So I inhale this stuff, and I'm falling back, and immediately, even as I'm falling back, I remember I could hear myself saying, It just felt so good. And so am laying on the mattress just in complete and utter bliss. And I start feeling this sharp sensation in the center of my forehead.
Mm.
And it intensifies and it grows stronger and stronger, almost like someone's digging their fingernail into my forehead. And the next thing I know, I just see this explosion of blue light everywhere around me, and I start singing. And keep in mind, I'm in like a really, really deep trance, like, just basically zonked out on this mattress. But I start singing, and the fullness of what was coming through was it was so beautiful to me. Not only the sound that I heard, but the feeling of releasing it out. And to then witness while I'm singing as well, like that there were all these different vocal ranges coming out of me that I'd never heard before, like highs and lows. I'd never made sounds like that. How is this even possible? And the facilitators, normally what they do during a bufo session is they wait until the person's on the medicine and then they start digging into their fascia to try and release blockages and go as deep as they can because the person is zonked out on the medicine and they think, oh, it's a good time to do our work. But when they heard me singing, they just stopped working and just sat there and listened to it. And that was just such an opening for me of what could be possible, to live 38 years perceiving my voice a certain way and then all of a sudden to self-witness a completely different side of what was already there
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
really just blew me away.
Did you have a previous history of singing in your life, or was that like just a brand new?
Uh, a tiny, tiny bit. I was in a musical when I was like 12 years old. The Sound of Music. I was one of the Von Trapp children, Kurt. But other than that, and my parents made me, do some singing in like church or school to a small degree, but I was never big into it. My sister was. She was a vocal performer and still is, has been my whole life. So I think there is something like potentially genetic with it, like in the blood, like a part of a lineage
Mhm.
sort of thing that was coming forward. That's the best way I could connect the dots. But she
Sure.
still does performances all the time, vocal. Although she went to college to major in vocal performance, but she ended up getting a PhD in conducting instead. But she's very into the music stuff.
Mhm.
I just never was until this. But now the way I'm into music is from channeling it, is I can't make these crazy sounds unless my mind is shut off and
Yeah.
I'm present with it. And then they come through.
Yeah. So the experience with them holding space for you to find your voice and be able to release it in that way. How did that experience change you in going forward in your life?
Hmm. At first, it was slow things. Uh, it was There was this ayahuasquero, this guy Panching Nima, who had just come to town to do some ayahuasca ceremonies. And I had deliberately done the Bufo experience a couple days before the ayahuasca ceremonies began because I was told that they're complementary medicines if you do Bufo first because it opens like the eighth and ninth chakras and it's very helpful for the ayahuasca. And so I went into the ayahuasca experience having created this opening and people started to ask me to do chants at some of the ceremonies I was going to. Can we hear you sing? And this kept happening over and over again. And so then I started getting used to doing it in front of other people. And at first I thought I can't even do it on ayahuasca. I thought I need hape to do it. And then I did it without hape. And then I did it without ayahuasca. And it sort of evolved. It's so strange how things evolve from there. Because when I started doing the ayahuasca ceremonies, I connected with the maestro who was serving the ayahuasca, and I did a private session with them. And they suggested I go on a plant diet, uh, working with a particular plant that they had brought with them from the Amazon. Uh, Offhand, I don't recall the name of that plant. It wasn't one of the normal master plant teachers that are known in the Shipibo or by a lot of people who do plant diets. It was a little bit different. But anyways, I was supposed to drink this tea at night before I went to bed and do these plant baths. I had these plant herbs, and there were certain foods I wasn't supposed to eat, and there was certain behaviors I wasn't supposed to engage in. Like I wasn't supposed to have sex. Wasn't supposed to eat red meat, things like that. The first night I took the tea, went to bed. In the middle of the night, I suddenly woke up in this really euphoric, blissful state, and I realized that I was singing. And I woke myself up out of sleep because I was singing. I sung myself awake, and when I saw
Wow.
the maestro the next time, he asked me like about my experience so far, and I told him about the first night, and he looks at me and he says, "That is the path. There, that is your path." So that was
Wow.
like a signpost.
Yeah, can I just pause here and make a little connection?
Sure.
Um, as you were describing the stick person and the head being open and it went upside down, and what you just said about you saying yourself awake instead of like singing yourself to sleep, which is kind of like really, um, so that to me is kind of fascinating.
That's an interesting association. I'd never made that connection before.
Yeah. Anyway.
Sure. So things keep evolving. From there, after I did a number of ayahuasca ceremonies with Panchine, I started having clairvoyant visions and seeing spirits, and it would just be a little more each time, a little more each time. And the visions would get bigger and deeper, and it was mainly like just understanding my own energy, seeing my own energy field, seeing my own guides, interacting with them. Eventually, one of the light portal facilitators, the guy kind of in charge, he was one of the ones that served me the bufo medicine. He invited me to join the light portal as a facilitator, to join the core team. And so I became a facilitator for the light portal, the same place where I had started as a participant. So things kind of came full circle there. And that was a great experience as well. And I enjoyed that sense of community and teamwork, and that lasted for some months. But then I suddenly got hit really hard with this like period of depression that just it was like it ambushed me out of nowhere for like 2.5 months. I was just processing so much intense sadness that it was all that I could do. Like I didn't hardly ever leave my apartment. It was just like these waves would just come through over and over and over again. And it was all I could do to just manage that rather than try and do anything else or heal other people. So I pulled out of the light portal and I just kind of came back to myself and just gave myself some space to sort of process everything. Because I mean, it was a lot. It's like went from like not having any shamanic beliefs or understandings to becoming a facilitator of that same kind of work and all the releases that happened with that and all the explorations, it came home to roost a little bit like, hey, you got to take care of yourself a little bit here.
Also, like, did they teach you how to energetically protect yourself from taking on everyone else's energy? Like, was that something that is integrated in that experience?
Only on a very small scale level.
Yeah.
So I went through this period, this depression, and as I started coming out of it, this next chapter began to unfold. And this is where things got even more interesting, at least to me, because, well, I had been going to the chiropractor a lot for years from a chronic back injury that I had a long time ago. And so there was this guy I would always go to there, and I called to make an appointment. He was out of town, but they said, but well, we have a guy there as a replacement. His name is Ben. He's a cranial sacral therapist, and I had no idea what cranial sacral therapy was or anything. And they said, would you like to make an appointment? Here's his bio. And I looked at his bio and, oh, he was trained with the Shipibo. That was interesting because the Shipibo was the same, that maestro that did all those ayahuasca ceremonies was from a long Shipibo lineage. And I was like, it's an interesting connection there. So I went in to see if this guy could help me. And what I didn't expect was basically, most of the private session was him chanting over me.
Wow.
Shipibo chants. Like kind of like what I've heard in the ayahuasca ceremony, but way more out there. Like sometimes even like almost alien sounds coming out of this guy. But it helped. It helped my pain, and I got some relief from it. And I remember the first session I did with him. After the session, I wanted to go get a Gatorade. I was really craving Gatorade for some reason. So I lived on the other side of town. So I decided I would go to the other side of town, go to the Onyx there. 'Cause it was like a chain of convenience stores there. The Onyx was, they had them all over. So I went to the Onyx on the other side of town, even though there was, several of them near the building where I was. And as I'm leaving the store, my Gatorade in hand, I look up and I see the therapist that I had just done the session with standing in the parking lot. He looks at me and he says, "See, I told you." Told me what? I don't know, told me something energetically. Or anyhow, I did many more private sessions with him and worked through a lot of like denser blocks, particularly in the heart space. And he invited me to sit with him in an ayahuasca ceremony that he was running. And this was different than the other ayahuasca ceremonies I'd been in, partly because he was only inviting people that he knew very well or that he had been working on, like he'd been working on me. So it was a very small setting, but I knew the style of ceremony. I was familiar with the Shipibo. I said, yeah, I'm open to it. So I get to the ceremony and I'm sitting there. It was this very tiny little ceremony that we did. And I found myself most of the evening sitting there feeling angry. Like I felt like, what am I doing here? This guy is not running this ceremony like I remember a Shipibo ceremony should be run. It's very disorganized. Like this is a scam. I was upset. Finally, I started to calm down a little bit. And right before sunrise, because we've been there all night, he comes over to me, sits down in front of me, and he says, okay, I'm going to do a chant for you. So I need you to sit up straight and breathe in from root to crown. So, breathe in, and then when you exhale, release through the crown, and just keep doing that. So I did, and he sang, and I started feeling a little something, but it wasn't much. Then he said, put out your hands. And then he would proceed to blow on my fingers. Still nothing. He's like, keep your hands there. And he moves his head closer, and I could hear him. It's like he's zooming in, looking at my fingers, and I hear him go, hmm. And then he blows again, but very, very softly. And the next thing I know was like an energetic explosion. I went like my state completely shifted in one moment to almost a non-receptive state to so open that I was hearing, smelling, tasting, seeing the energy in the room. Like every clear sense was activated all at once, and it was so wild to have such a polarizing like shift. I started laughing uncontrollably, just like a cackle almost. And so then Ben, he leans over and he looks at me, kind of a mischievous look, and he says, "Life is just a game." And so then started to realize, wow, so yeah, ayahuasca, of course, is very powerful, but I mean, that was so clear to me that there's a lot more to working with ayahuasca than just sitting with the medicine. If you have someone who knows how to direct the flow of the energy of that medicine, that is where the real magic is. Directing that energy with just sound. And from there, he invited me in to work with him on a more of a medium longer term basis doing, well, I guess, another plant diet, plant spirit diet. This time I would be working with a plant called Marosa, which is all about the heart. But the difference between this diet and what most people think of a plant spirit diet is that traditionally, most people, first of all, when they think of a plant spirit diet, they think you go to the jungle, you sit in a hut for however long you're going to do the diet, and the diet becomes basically your life, and you're just managing yourself to do the diet. But uh, nowadays, there are a lot more integrative ways to do plant spirit diets. And so the one I had done previously with Panchine was a more integrative diet, but still I was taking a physical plant, drinking a tea. But with this one, the maestro actually he implanted the energetic seed of the Marosa in the following night's ceremony in my energy field. And from that point on, I never actually took a physical plant at all. I never took Marosa, I never drank a tea, never ate anything or had a tincture, nothing. All we did was every 2 or 3 weeks I would meet with him over Zoom. He would deliver a new chant to me, and then I would listen to the chant every day. And then after I would listen to the chant, and I was instructed to go outside and smoke some apacho, which is like sacred tobacco basically, and do like a grounding ritual with it. And so I did. About a month into that experience, doing that diet, I went for a walk one evening. I'm walking, minding my own business. I start feeling this warm sensation like in the middle of my chest, but not in the center, but more up in the higher part of the chest, like kind of between the throat and the middle, sort of, like where you would think the thymus would be, basically, or the high heart. So I started feeling this warm sensation, and then it was like this feeling of what would be akin to the petals of a flower blooming all in one moment. And I felt this opening, and then it was like this massive movement or release and reception of unconditional love I was just so swept up in total love and euphoria and oneness, but very like in a physical sense. Like everywhere I looked, no matter where I shifted, turned my head, my gaze, I would see this like all these different colors sort of blending together, and it would dynamically change. So it would never be the same combination of colors, but it was never any less beautiful no matter what the combination was. No matter where I looked, it was so beautiful. And no matter what object I looked at, I would start falling in love with it. Like there's the grass. Oh, grass. There's a mailbox. Yeah, I was just like, I'd feel it in my body, and just, it was so incredible. Here I am on this plant diet where I'm not physically taking a plant. I'm just listening using sound, and I'm having the most wonderful, like, not out of body, it was an in body experience, but it was the most, so incredible. I mean, I was stumbling around like a drunk. I was so just drunk on the wonderful sensations that I was experiencing. And so you could say that really opened my eyes into what was possible for um, you managing energy or working with energy through distance and through sound. And so it wasn't long after that where I went back to the States. I had to come back as my father was in poor health, and I was needed here to do some things. And coming back here, all of a sudden I'm cut off from all the amenities of Tulum, where I could just, go to a breathwork session or a yoga or anything I wanted at any time for the most part, because there were so many different healing modalities and things that were available there all the time, constantly going on, to kind of a little more of a remote situation. And so that's when I started getting into playing with tuning forks. And I learned about biofield tuning. And so first I just became a student of it. And I just started receiving as many biofield tunings as I could. I just kept finding so many benefits. Biofield tuning, for those who don't know, would just be like, it's a way of using tuning forks, but like for energy healing, in a very intentional way. And so because everything works with the quantum field, you can receive really amazing energy healing just by listening to it. And so I would listen to these healings. I was probably spending 4 or 5 hours a day just diving into these different things every day. And eventually I thought, well, at this point, to go further, I need to actually get certified in this in order to learn something, a new way of doing it. And maybe I can do it to myself or something or other people. And so then I got certified in biofield tuning. And then things came full circle and all connected. And I started learning that as I was doing the biofield tuning, I was organically starting to use my voice to run through the energy more efficiently with the fork. And then eventually I realized that I could actually use my voice for most of it and just use the forks as a supportive rather than a primary as a tool. And so my work just developed all through these different phases and cycles. And about a year ago, I went to visit and meet this Mayan abuelo. Abuelo, there's a term they use in Mayan culture. I mean, the literal meaning is grandfather, but they use it for certain elders within these different Mayan communities that have almost an authoritative type of position. And this abuelo was one of the only Mayan abuelos out there, that maybe the only one, that had a history of working with plant medicines as part of his healing practice. But he had also been trained on this very ancient energy healing practice called the Putsia. And so I received a Putsia treatment from him when I was there. And when I came back to the States, there was a period where one evening when I was doing my normal, because I was performing about once a week, doing like free group sessions, and these new sounds started to come through that I'd not made before, like not so much on a frequency level, but on a rhythmic level. I was like able to generate different types of rhythms with my voice, and I'd never done it before. And then I made the connection, like, oh, this was like the integration from what I received from the Putsia treatment. So it's like now, anytime I go and I have like a new, like a major energetic experience, it seems that the benefits of that somehow get integrated back into my sound healing work, and new things open up in my voice that weren't there before, or new awarenesses open up while I'm working that weren't there before. It's
Mhm.
yeah, well, it is that.
Yeah. Did you have anyone in your life going through all of these things that you could go to as like a mentor to help you integrate all of these things into your life?
I had some different guides over time, but I had a friend who was going through a really hard time when I was living in Tulum, and so we bonded some, and I had other friends that were going through tough things, but ultimately, I realized that a big part of my integration was that I needed to learn for myself that it was okay for me to be alone, and to that I was okay, and that I didn't need someone else to heal me. So in a sense, yes, like the friendship was an important thing, but it was also like, oh, I'm okay. And I did like last year, because I was still going through a lot of integration last year. I started doing a lot of work with this guy, Kai Clay. He's call him an open body, or no, an open full body deep trance channel. So it's like if you're familiar with, is it Bashar? I'm trying to think of that guy everyone's seen like Instagram and stuff, where when the guy channels him, the being comes out and the guy basically loses consciousness himself, and you're only talking to the being. So this guy was like that, and he channeled a being, and I was working with him a lot, and that was super helpful. Um, they helped me a lot actually, because every time I would interact with them, there was an energetic exchange. No matter what it was that they said, I received the energy that I needed. And
Mm.
to me, that's like a big part of the benefit of interacting with on an energy healing level. And so it's a big part of why I also like, so I have a podcast I do, and I'm rebooting it now. And a big part of it is energy healing, where I find that when I talk to different energy healers and I have them do even a small little healing, spontaneous healing, that I receive so much benefits from that interaction, not necessarily on the spot, but then later integrating their energy. Uh,
Mhm.
it's wonderful. So yeah, just the energetic support for me was a key part, but yeah, it wasn't like one person.
How have you taken all of this knowledge that you've gained?
Well, it evolved into what I now call Blue Dragon Healing. As I was getting to know my guides, I started to learn that my primary guide is a blue dragon, and so when I sing and do channeling energetically, they kind of are like the conductor for all the other guides. And so there are different lineages, different beings that kind of move here and there while I'm singing, and all kinds of different energies come through, different voices, all this, but it's sort of managed and controlled by the blue dragon, and I'm kind of the vehicle for it, and receiving the signals to shift and go here, go there, kind of like almost like a puppet. And so I call it Blue Dragon Healing because that's essentially what it is. So I do like weekly live events on Insight Timer that are free. I do a podcast, and I do like private work as well, which tends to attract people who are really more, we'll say creatives, either people doing healing work or people who are like holistic coaching, something on a path where they get a sense that I might be able to help them open up more energetically and bring out a new aspect of their own expression. It's like a lot of this stuff that I'm doing is all about primal expression and the throat chakra. If you, I mean, it's the easiest way to explain it is like it's the throat chakra, releasing that creativity, allowing it to flow, and in so doing, kind of moving through some blocks of communication and um, traumatic relationships and things that we might hold on to.
Yeah. So if people would like to work with you, where could we guide them to?
I have a website, bluedragonhealing.net. So there's a resources page there, which kind of puts together a lot of the different aspects of what I provide. But then also, I have a newsletter, which if someone wants to it's kind of like the nerve center of everything. It's a way to stay connected to the different offerings and also get kind of an inner scoop on some of the things that I'm doing to manage my own energy and things that I'm working on and stuff too.
Excellent. I'll put those into the show notes so people can click on it easily. And yeah, you're learning, and as you go, you're sharing that wisdom with other people along the way. That's really beautiful.
It's been quite a journey, and I have a sense that there's a long way to go.
Is there anything like on the top of your mind or your heart that we haven't gotten to yet that you feel like is important to share?
Not in English words, but I could do a very short transmission if you want.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, let me just adjust my audio setting to make sure that I'm not going to have the sound suppress. Oh, we already have the original sound turned on here. Okay, perfect. Karimanikera sorimito granarikamitu anahoe rimegi sanaremi hanani. manira ingisa ina kena oimingiata pinari hiko ishi ahara hingi kanira. Aho.
Thank you. My crown chakra is exploding right now.
Those dragons are mischievous creatures.
When was the moment? Do you have a specific moment where you realized that you didn't need the plant medicine as a crutch in order to be able to access this part of yourself?
That sort of unfolded gradually. When I started doing Insight Timer lives, um, they have policies against even talking about plant medicine, so I definitely never use it for any of those. But then even recently, as I still enjoy working with plants, but I've noticed recently that uh, they affect me much less than they did before because my energy stays so much more centered in my body. And when I used to say, for example, use cannabis, it would kind of pull me out, and I would have these crazy, like my head would be buzzing a lot or whatever. And now it's like I barely notice it, just much more subtle. So it's not even something that I really crave to do, but I still enjoy it. But yeah, not one particular moment, but what was significant was at that ayahuasca ceremony when I thought I needed hape to sing because I just wasn't feeling well, and I was sitting there. Of course, I was on ayahuasca, but still it was a new way for me. Then Jose was there at the ceremony. He just came up behind me. He started shaking maracas in my ear, just like during that private session, and he just stood there and he wouldn't stop shaking the maracas in my ear until I started laughing, and then suddenly I decided I was gonna sing, and I sang. And then I realized all I need to do is start making sound, and then just let the sound go. So I don't need to worry about the perfect starting point. I just start, and so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It will go where it needs to.
There you go. Yeah. So I usually ask one last question to wrap up the conversation, and
Mhm.
that if your inner voice had a billboard, what would it say to the world?
The joy of expression can never be understated.
All right. Well, thank you for expressing and bringing your joy to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you're listening and you like what you hear, please consider subscribing and rating this podcast, as it really helps get this podcast out to other people who might be interested in hearing it but don't know about it yet. And also, if you'd like to... Also, don't forget that you can get 45% off of the Magic Mind 24-hour pack with the focus shot and the sleep elixir with the link that is in the description and the show notes. Contact me or reach me. You can reach me at unconditioningpodcast@gmail.com or unconditioningpodcast on Instagram. Thank you so much. And until next time, stay tuned in to you.